But I'm very much an agenda type person, so just to kind of let you know my plans for what we can chat about tonight. I really want to just introduce our organization, myself, talk about why we conserve land, talk about growth in the greater Nashville area. I've got some awesome maps that are going to shock you. How TennGreen protects land, what the tools in our toolkit are. Some recent projects that we're working on, some things that are finished, and a couple of things that are ongoing, which I can also talk about why we can't really talk about what we do until it's finished, but some great stuff we've gotten. And then I'm very hopeful we'll have time for questions at the end. I do have 48 slides. I'm going to try and blow through them. If you have a question, I would ask that you hold it to the end because I might answer it along the way. But having said that, I'm a very conversationalist kind of person, so I don't want us, if you have a great idea or a thought or something, let's just all talk about it. So about TennGreen, okay, so TennGreen Land Conservancy is the oldest statewide accredited land trust in Tennessee. We have worked throughout Tennessee and the Mid-South, sort of the Memphis region to conserve land. We very recently hit a 50,000 acre milestone, which I'm very proud of. And in doing a little bit of research earlier this week, I sort of confirmed that 23,600 something of those acres have been conserved by TennGreen and partners in the past 5 years. Wow. So we're 25 years old, but almost half of the work we've accomplished has taken place in the past 5 years. A lot of that was fueled by a really significant anonymous bequest that we received that we did not anticipate. It helped us grow our revolving land fund, which is how we can access capital to acquire properties, to about $2.8 million, and we're running out of that money already, which is wild, because it revolves, so it's always replenished. We've got a lot going on. We are credited by the Land Trust Alliance, so in the conservation world, Land Trust Alliance gives you that good housekeeping seal of approval. They come in and audit our books every 5 years. I think we're on the 7-year track now, thank goodness. It's a big process. And we are only funded through the generosity of our communities. That may be our members, our corporate sponsors, our partners, but we do not receive funding from the government. We do not receive funding through grants. We receive funding from people like you all. So thanks for being interested in what we do. And I'm very proud of two of these things. Well, I'm proud of all of them, but and this is old. We just recently received our 2023 Platinum Transparency Seal from Candid, which used to be called GuideStar. If you're familiar with that particular program, it's sort of like Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator ranks nonprofits based on effectiveness and transparency. They do not do land trust or hospitals because we are all too confusing. Those are only two things they cut out, hospitals and land trusts. But check out Candid, again, it used to become GuideStar, tons of information on all the nonprofits there. And then also, I was also very proud in 2021, we won Best Places to Work from the National Business Journal. So that just made it a little corporate culture thing where we all like each other, we all have a great time. We're all working towards a shared goal, so. And a little bit about me, and I'll tell you why I put this slide up here. So I have a master's from Vanderbilt at Peabody. I have a master's in higher education administration with an emphasis in institutional advancement. What that is not a science degree. I am not an environmental attorney. I am not a tax advisor. A lot of the work that we do affects those things. If you have questions for me about biology, or ecology, if you have questions about tax attorneys, I don't know the answers. I know a lot of great people who know the answers. So I'm very happy to do the best I can to answer any questions, but I have a master's in education. I've been working in the field of conservation for 10 years. I have been working for more than 15 years, my whole career in nonprofit. I work in the field of advancements, that's fundraising, communications, alumni relations if you have kids at school. And then outside of work here in Nashville, I'm very active in the junior league. I also belong to the Econ Club, and in my neighborhood, I'm on their planning and zoning committee. So That's what I do in my spare time, and just in case you're curious, my favorite hike in Tennessee is Black Mountain, and if you haven't been there, it's just so cool. I mean, it's beautiful. That's not what this picture is, but go to Black Mountain. So I know that you're in this room because you care about the world, because you care about our environment, because you care about nature, and so I put this part of the presentation in here in the sense that there are a lot of tools in the toolkit that we have to utilize to protect the world we have, to ensure everyone can thrive. Land conservation is one of those tools, but that is what we do here at TennGreen. And so I'm going to get into this a little bit. If you have more questions, let me know, but I know I'm talking to people who believe in this, so this might be the part I glaze over the most. But look at all of the ways that land conservation matters, right? It has a lot more ripple effects than just, preserving trees. So in terms of sort of nature, kind of tie this up, why is land conservation important, right? So first off, we protect ecological systems. Preserving the entirety of an ecosystem helps to protect all of the things that those ecosystems provide to us, the ecological services. So not only are we interested in conserving and protecting existing habitat, then taking those and connecting them. So conservation corridors is a big initiative of ours. I'm sure you're all aware about carbon sequestration and how vital that is right now to everything we do. But protecting and increasing tree canopy obviously helps us with what we call extreme weather-related events. We're in Tennessee, sometimes we can't use the word climate change, but hey, we say extreme weather events. And then the biodiversity, and I don't know if you are aware of this, but Tennessee is extraordinary in its biodiversity. We are the most biodiverse state that doesn't touch an ocean. Right? All those other states get to count on the oceanic one. We don't, but we're the most biodiverse. So if I was giving this presentation and felt like I had reliable Wi-Fi, I would kick us over to an old BuzzFeed article, I know BuzzFeed, from 2015. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. But this is cool sliders, right? And what it shows federal protected lands and then ecological and biodiversity hotspots. So I snagged two of the maps. Well, let me just jump over here. So this is from biodiversitymapping.org. Can you see this here? The red and the yellow, the lighter the colors, the more biodiversity there is. So, here we are in the southeast. So, and I know these don't perfectly align, but those are federally protected lands, right? So it's like, jump back. Here we are, all of our biodiversity, and then that's what's federally protected. So, we've got some work to do. We've got some work in the southeast to do. And then to jump back to this slide that I missed, more about our biodiversity. We're second in freshwater fish in the country. We're second in obligate cave species. We are fourth for amphibian species, and 7 of the 8 most biologically rich rivers in Tennessee are found here in Tennessee. So we're really, really important state, important place for biodiversity. And our very topography, right? From the Mississippi River through the Cumberland Plateau, through the Appalachian Mountains, really has so much to do with that. So what are some threats to biodiversity? Non-point source pollution, right? When we spray Roundup in our yards, hopefully nobody in this room does that, but sometimes you gotta do what in your neighbors. Natural land cover conversion, when we're taking forests to natural spaces and paving over them or letting them go fallow. Urbanization, unsustainable land management practices, so poor land management or unknowledgeable land management. Some people think they're doing the right thing, they're not, as we learn. And lack of conservation funding. Tennessee is 50th in conservation funding. We are also not taking advantage of quite a bit of money that the federal government has put into some of the recent acts, the Inflation Reduction Act, America the Beautiful, that we're not accessing that as a state. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer. I do want to mention though that Governor Lee did allocate $30 million into the Heritage Conservation Trust Fund. That's $5 million over 6 years, and all of the land that is acquired through those funds are required to have specific restrictive covenants put on those properties. So that's about $5 million. And they typically only fund about a third of any acquisition project. So imagine that could be about a $90 million investment over 6 years in conservation. And they just awarded us, oh well, I can't remember anything. Anyway, small break, but I'm excited about the project. You'll hear more about it soon. We've got to get that contract back. So also there's more about land conservation, right? We talked about how it affects our habitats, but it obviously affects us as humans as well. It helps our health, right? Our well-being, our nature. We need places to play. You know, we need access to clean water, clean air, clean food. Disappointing information, if you don't know this already, it's disgusting. Got a disgusting fact and figure. 30% of Tennessee's rivers and streams cannot support life. They may be dead, they may be dirty, they cannot support aquatic life. And 40% of all of the rivers and streams in Tennessee are what they call unsuitable for prolonged human contact. Almost half of our rivers and streams, you will get sick if you are in that water. And that's what we're drinking. I mean, so jealous of Memphis. They've got the best water, right? But that's not where we are. And then of course our food resources as well. You have to have, I like this bumper sticker, no farms, no food. We have to be able to protect the ecosystems, the pollinators that help provide our food sources, all of those important things. And the economy. I actually have some information about the economy on another page, but people don't tend to think that what's good for nature and what's good for business go hand in hand, but the truth is it absolutely does. This is information right here. This is from the 2018 Cumberland Region Tomorrow study on the Cumberland Region, 10 county kind of greater Nashville area. They did a study on open space value, $16 billion annually in economic activity from agriculture and forestry, providing almost 200,000 jobs. $15 billion impact on property values, which helped to generate an additional $118 million in local property tax revenue, and $1.3 billion annually in recreation, with an indirect benefit, get this, $214 million in healthcare savings because of increased physical activity. So the numbers are huge and they're important, and this is general open space protection. Okay, so here are my scary maps and some data. And I believe you all probably feel this. Maybe you don't know it, maybe you don't know the data, but I think you're probably going to feel, because I sure do, as a Tennessee resident. So this is from the Boyd Center at MTG. Projections, so somewhere around from the census, if it continues at a little less than a 1% increase every year, we're looking at having 9 million residents by 2050 here in Tennessee. Right now we're less than 7 million, so that's a tremendous amount of growth in the next 20 years or so. And then the rest of these slides, well, the next few slides, I have taken, borrowed, with permission, from the Greater Nashville Regional Council. So they compiled all of this data, but I'm excited to show you these maps. Also, I just love maps. So this is 710,000 people added to this area, the 10-county area, between 2000 and 2020. So 48% growth in the past 20 years. I hate how they do this, but 154,000 football fields have been lost each year. So what would they say? Gained impervious surface, right? Something's been bulldozed over, something's been paved, something's been made a building.
When you say football fields, you mean that amount of space?
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
Worth of, yes. I would love if we could come up with another visual way to describe land. I've tried and tried. But people kind of tend to know what a football field is, and people don't really know how much an acre is, right? I can't really visualize like a full acre, but a football field. The 7,000 football fields lost every year of cropland, and this is really hard to see in here, in the past 20 years. 155,000 football fields every year of lost tree canopy. Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. What I think when we talk about the root national initiatives and things which are so important,
Like Antioch.
it is not. Yes, it's not keeping up with the trees we've lost. We're just not keeping up with that, and we don't actually have any data on that. There's nobody tracking that. We can track how many trees have been planted. Nobody is tracking how many trees we've cut down. Developers have cut down. Whoever's cutting them down.
I think the National Tree Conservancy was, but they just kind of moved out of the area, so.
Are you talking about
They're not active, it doesn't seem.
the conservation, the National Tree Conservation Corps, or the National Tree Foundation?
Neither.
Not neither. It was two guys that started it out there and ones that helped get the cherry trees replanted.
Yeah,
They
the
were-
National Tree Conservation Corps. They revamped it.
Okay, they revamped
Yeah,
it.
Jim, yeah.
But
That's,
they were trying to keep up with it and have every, people in different areas. But it's so hard.
Yeah.
And when they are replanting, then they're doing not native or, ornamental and not.
so true. So, I mean, yes, you're right. We're really not able to track it. I think they try and use satellite data to figure out what regions, but that's not gonna, Kimmy's neighbors, they're not gonna pick that up when they tear down, 10 of the trees on her ridge line. So,
50, but it wasn't 10.
a lot of trees, yeah. And more terrible data. Same time period, 77,000 acres of agricultural land was lost. And this is the 10-county region. I wish I had this data for other regions in Tennessee. 52,000 acres of forested land. They gained over 30,000 acres of grass shrubland. What that means is that we're tearing down forest or an existing wildflower, grassland area and replanting with lawns, golf courses, those kinds of things, or land has just gone fallow. And gained over 90,000 acres of urban or developed land, right? So put those together. There we go. All right, you're ready for some maps? Okay, more maps. All right, 2020. This is not my data. This is data from for GRNC. This is their land use mile. So this is has population and job density. But as you can tell, the red is where people are the most dense. The green is where there's much less population and/or jobs. So this is 2020, and then here's their projection for 2045. I'm just gonna go back. Here we go, right? We're losing a lot of land. Look at Williamson County and Rutherford County. Pretty amazing. And Montgomery up around Clarksville. All right, here's this my scary one. 2020 developed parcels. Undeveloped areas are in light green, and the gray is developed parcels. Here's 2045. Right. So we're really, again, look at Williamson County, Williamson, Rutherford, all over around. This goes to the river. So we don't have long to wait if we're going to conserve the best places we can. This is from the American Farmland Trust, this info. This is all across the state because we are a statewide organization. They're talking about losing 8,700 farms, $250 million in farm output, 15,000 jobs by 2040, and 1 million acres of land. They say 52% they're planning on is going to be of Tennessee's best agricultural land. Don't ask me how they determine what they call a best agricultural land. I'm assuming it's water and soil and some other things. The hardest hit counties, Rutherford, Sevier, and Williamson. Sevier kind of surprises me a little bit, but you can see the urban centers are popping. Here's Jackson, all done before the local mega site or any of the other We were just, ranked third most business-friendly state. I think I saw that this morning. So there's gonna be a lot more big blue oval developments coming. Okay, so that's kind of what we're up against. So what does TennGreen do? Well, TennGreen's mission is to conserve land where people and nature can thrive, right? So we do everything through the lens of our mission. We have 3 key tools in our toolkit, right? That's what I call tools in our toolkit. We do conservation easements, we do acquisitions, and we do restoration. And so a couple of my favorite projects, that's B-Rock. It's just a picture of a sign. It's not how cool B-Rock is. Go to B-Rock. It's really neat to go there. Rock Island, again, amazing place. We did some acquisition work there, and that's a picture of some prescribed burning occurring on a farm that we own, or a 2,000-acre farm. So a conservation easement. Conservation easement is a legal binding document where a landowner has rights, right? You own land and you have rights on your land. What you can do as a landowner is sever certain rights. And so people donate those rights to TennGreen for us to ensure that whatever those rights are that they have donated is withheld in perpetuity to protect the conservation value of the property. An example is if you have a 100-acre farm and you want it to remain open space, what you can do is you can donate or purchase. We've done 2 purchase easements, and that's probably the next big thing. It costs a lot of money. You can donate the ability to subdivide. So if you've got a 100-acre farm, it's never going to turn into 200 half-acre lots because it's only going to be whatever we say it is. Maybe there's no subdivision, maybe there's one, something along those lines. If you donate well, actually, I'm going to get into this a little bit, but you can donate extraction rights, mineral, timber, and you can develop development rights. So, if you say there's never going to be a gazebo, there's never going to be a gazebo. You're donating them to TennGreen as an organization, and what that means is that every year we have to go out and make sure that what we said we're going to protect. And the wildest, craziest, insanest thing about it is that it's forever. We have to do that forever. And when you think about forever, I get really kind of freaked out, and I use this picture for a reason. This place is a protected property. It was an acquisition by TennGreen and a conservation easement. It's called Custard Hollow. It's on the Cumberland Trail. It's the head of the Sequatchie River. It's a very, very, very cool place because inside of that cave, and I would say if you crawl, but no one's allowed to know it besides Dr. Jan Chimnick at UT Knoxville. If you crawl inside on your belly about 20 feet underneath the big rock, you walk into this huge, huge cave. There are 21 pieces of cave art that date back to around the year 700. So much neater is there's a footprint of an artist preserved in the mud underneath inside this cave, which is, again, why Dr. Shimmer's the only person allowed to go in there. But I love that it's preserved through a conservation easement and it's actually part of public lands, part of the state and Cumberland Trail. Just to get a little bit, and the neat thing, well, neither complicated, is that every single easement is different. It's tailored to the conservation values of the land. What are we trying to protect? Are there cave systems? Is there water? Are there archaeological sites or wildflowers? Or like we're working on a project right now to protect a cedar glade, about 300 acres down in Mount Juliet-ish area. Cedar glades are really unique. They've got they're endemic to Tennessee. They have wildflowers and other things on them that literally only grow on cedar glades, and cedar glades only happen in Middle Tennessee. So we're going to protect those, but they're not going to have a cool cave on there. We're going to protect those itty-bitty tiny wildflowers. Again, sort of examples of restriction, and I put this photo in here just so you can see how technical these easements are. I mean, I'm reviewing one right before I came. There are 30 pages of legalese and maps. What we do is we go out and we work with the landowner to do a conservation easement, and we create what's called a baseline document report. And these can be 200 pages easily. We take photos of everything. We take waypoints of everything. And that is the baseline from when 100 years from now, 300 years from now, or oh my gosh, 1,000 years from now, whoever's running TennGreen, it's not going to be me, will go in and look at that document that we have created and say, okay, we said there can be a gazebo here, now there's a gazebo here, you gotta take it down, or whatever it is. So again, we do subdivision or partition, development, we can restrict, some areas may be only restricted to residential, some may be put into commercial or ag, just depends on what we negotiate, and of course resource extraction. A lot of people in Tennessee actually don't own their mineral rights. If they do own their mineral rights, we're going to protect those to prevent against mining. But that is an interesting thing I've learned. All right, so that's what an easement is in a very, very brief nutshell. We do a lot of acquisition and expansion of lands as well. We work with community groups, we work with agencies of all sizes, we work with counties, we work with cities. We worked with communities, but we do a heck of a lot with the state of Tennessee. We've done a lot of park creation, park expansion. I mentioned Cedars of Lebanon because that is a state natural area and a forest and a state park, and we are working with them, especially at Cedars of Lebanon. What they want to do is prevent invasive species and edge effects from the landowners who surround the park from disturbing the natural resources in the park. So they've come to us and they said, hey, can you help us? So we're doing kind of two different things. We're helping them acquire land. It may or may not be open to the public one day. I mean, it is a part of the park, but it may not be like a trail or anything, but it's going to protect. We've got about 20 acres we've done there so far. We're also going to work with the landowners that surround it and hopefully convince them to do conservation easements, right? They don't have to sell their land, they don't have to lose their land, but if we can at least protect the property that they have to get the invasives and all those other things to get out of the state park so that it can be preserved, that's our goal. We basically, we purchase, we negotiate, and we accept donations of land as well. We always negotiate, because we're always trying to save some money for the taxpayers in our organization. And my colleague Christy is really good at it. You get a phone call from Christy. She's really good at negotiation. And what else do we do? When we conserve land, we put it into public ownership. It requires communities that care to pay attention to what's happening. And I think we all understand what I'm saying. I think it wasn't long ago that there was a park up in North Nashville that for some reason was owned by the Department of Ed and not Parks, and then they wanted to sell it because they were running out of money, but the community used it and loved it. It was a big water resource. So they made a stink, and we were able to, we did not do this, TennGreen did not do this, we were aware of it and supported it. I think we wrote a letter of support. But getting it to swap with other land that the education department could sell out, and then I believe it is an existing park and protected by being a part of Metro Parks. We need to be diligent, right? We just always have to be diligent. We have a really cool project going on with National Park Service. We work with Fish and Wildlife, and we work with the federal agencies as well. So from Lincoln County to National Park Service, if there's a role for us, we want to be helpful. And then finally, we have restoration. This is very, very much through the big projects we've done have been grant funded through the National Fish and Wildlife Federation. But so far, and we've only been doing this for 4 or 5 years, we've burned over 1,000 acres to help the ecosystems recover and shortleaf pine to be able to thrive in those areas. We planted over 100,000 shortleaf pines, and these are all on the Cumberland Plateau. And we've treated over 6,300 hemlock trees for the woolly adelgid. So this picture is on our property that we own called Soak Creek, which was a land donation of 2,000 acres on the Cumberland Plateau. But here you can see the woolly the hemlock on the water resources. We treat the trees that are close to the river first. But I'm not a scientist. That's what we do. So that's all good work. So we took, 2018 or so, 2019, TennGreen went through a big strategic planning process, and we're in the middle of one now again. And it called for two things. It called for, one, resolve the name change issue, which we did. We're TennGreen Land Conservancy now. But the other really more important thing was the creation of a strategic land conservation plan. In our history, we've been very reactive. Someone has called us and they've said, hey, this property's on the market, y'all go get it. Or they've called us and they said, I want to buy your property. And we were able to be very reactive, but we also want to be proactive. We know that there is science out there that's going to tell us where we're going to be the most effective. So we picked 4 key focal types of lands that we are working to protect. And we have millions of acres worth. The first are large connected natural areas, right? So I talked a little bit earlier about how connectivity is critical to protecting habitat. I don't know if you can see it, but we're looking at Davidson County again, right? We're looking at Williamson County in Middle Tennessee. This has a thing, I forgot.
It's a little wheel in the middle.
The wheel in the middle, huh?
Yeah.
Wait,
Is it showing? Okay.
can you at all, anybody a little bit?
It's on the ceiling.
Yeah, there it is. It's on the ceiling.
It's on the ceiling.
Give it down.
But can you see it, but on the screen though too? Because I think that's the reflection. Well, can you see Davidson County? I'm not tall enough to. Here's the Highland Rim that reaches around Davidson County. That is an area we're very interested in conserving, this whole area. This is the basin. There's the rivers. This whole area, this is kind of the Swamp Conservation Trust area. So we're looking at all of these green pop hugely in corridors. All of our mapping, by the way, is from the Nature Conservancy. They have a good data. All right. Areas of critical habitat biodiversity. Oh, look, here's Cedars of Lebanon. Conservation target area, right? So, and this isn't quite going to show up, but all of the state lands are the gray, and it's really hard to see in the middle. Those are the areas of the state natural areas program and other already currently owned. And the yellow around it is the area that we're really interested in conserving. So we're being very proactive. We're designing programs. We're doing a lot of brand awareness initiatives because people are going to have to trust us. They want to donate to conservation business to us. And there's a Tennessee flower. Let's see it. We are also prioritizing wetlands and lands along rivers and streams. We know that water resources are critical. We know that there is a lot of pollution that's occurring in them, as I mentioned before, and that Tennessee has some incredible rivers. So a couple of our areas that are in this national area, this is way south, there's Union County to the Elk River, the headwaters area, there's a headwaters WMA, Turtle Creek, because we know Harbor Conservancy and our other friends are working on those big rivers, but we want to make sure we can protect all of the streams that are coming into them. There's the Buffalo. There's a lot of water in Tennessee. It's been quite hard to pick where we want to be. We don't need to be somewhere where a group's already working, right? If there's a group that's already committed to the duck, like the Nature Conservancy works on the duck, we don't need to get in their way. We'll collaborate if they want us to be a part of it. We'd love to, but I don't want to disturb any conversations they may already be having with landowners. We're not going to have to muddle anything. And the last, and this is a really tricky map, land for public benefit. So recreation and open space. This map is not my favorite map because I don't quite know how well it really shows what we're trying to do. But it's a state issue, it's not a TennGreen's issue. Can't do anything about it. In theory, the red and the hot spots, the red and the orange, are distance that somebody has to travel to get to a park. Now here's the thing. First off, it doesn't include county parks. It doesn't include city parks. It's not just state parks. It also, okay, I should say this, I should clarify that. Every county has their own reporting system. Every single county, there's no statewide, here is where we all are. And so, the Lincoln County down here, first off, it's kind of rural. Maybe people don't need parks because maybe they live in a park, you know? Maybe they have 200 acres of their own.
Maybe they didn't report it.
They didn't report it. And then also, but when you get to Nashville, it's including basketball, I'm trying to say basketball courts, it includes tennis courts, it includes things like that, which that's not the kind of park business TennGreen is in. I love all those parks, playgrounds, all the fun stuff. So the map's okay, but it's an area that we really want to have. We want to make sure that people have access to nature. Of course, the more time they spend, the more they'll love it, the more they'll appreciate it, and the more they'll be better stewards. And
What are the green areas?
the green areas, in theory, are places where there is better access. So I think it's like a 10-mile or a 10-minute commute versus a 2-hour commute. I think the red is a 2-hour commute. But again, I don't love this map, but it's the one we have. I did have a chance to speak with Commissioner Bryson, who was the director of state parks, and now he's the comptroller for the state. And he actually was drilling me on this map, and I think he wants us to create this map for, not us, but he wants the state of Tennessee to actually come up with a good map to show access to public recreation. And that was very affirming to me. I don't know if it'll happen, but he owns the purse strings, and that's a good thing for him to care about.
So the green is best, yellow is,
It's basically, if it's red, it's the further, more time people would have to travel to get to places with public recreation. And then the yellow and the orange are sort of less and less, and the green are people who have easier access to those places. But like I said, I don't love this map.
yeah. And I
And-
was thinking I can see in Marshall County, isn't that where Henry Horton is? Wouldn't they be close?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that's the duck. So, again, I don't love this map. The bigger problem, and something I'm honestly a little anxious to even say, is that when we take all 4 of our maps and we put them on top of each other, it's the whole state. It's the whole state of Tennessee. We have so much water, we have so much need, we have so many great forests and climate corridors. It's a little overwhelming for a team of 12. Cool. So, getting towards the end, I just want to share with you some of our recent successes, because like I said, we've been on a roll. Here's a map of everything TennGreen has done, or at least the numbers of the projects. What was I going to say? So we really are statewide. Actually, that's in Mississippi. I'll show you a map of something we're doing in Arkansas right now. But the Nashville area, the Cumberland Plateau has always been a really big emphasis. Here it is, 24 projects, 18 projects. This is the Falcon Falls area. 10 down in the South Cumberland, which may include the one we announced today, the Fessmeyer acquisition.
What's the meaning of the colors?
It's just like, I actually don't know.
Okay.
I just did a screen grab from our software called Landscape.
I don't know,
Maybe-
state, city,
No,
something like that.
I think the colors are kind of arbitrary.
Okay.
We've actually just, we have a conservation easement here in Greene County, and then this is Irwin, where we've just done 2 acquisitions of a fish hatchery. If you're ever up in Irwin, Tennessee, go to the fish hatchery. It is shockingly cool. It is really fun. I assure you, I never expected to have a great time there, and it was awesome. They even invited me back to so they do trout there. They do rainbow trout and another different kind of trout, I forgot. And I guess when they're harvesting the eggs from salmon, they have to kill the salmon when they do that. They don't survive the process, but the trout survive the process. So they paralyze them very quickly, and you have to pick them up and squeeze the eggs out and get them right back in the water. And they let people from the public do that. So if you ever want to go squeeze some fish eggs out of the fish, go to Irwin. It's good. I'm going to do it. It's cool. So this is a really big initiative that we are undertaking with partners in Memphis, and I only have one slide for the other projects I wanted to talk about, but this one has a lot of slides because of the designers that we're working with. But this is going to be a 1,500-acre park on the Mississippi River, right across from downtown Memphis, world class. It's going to be amazing. We're working with Ducks Unlimited, and we established a nonprofit called Big River Park Conservancy Big River Park Conservancy will manage the land in perpetuity. We're figuring out the ownership in be-all because the state of Arkansas is kind of wishy-washy. But TennGreen got involved because there are 9 different landowners. The Shirley tracts were in foreclosure, so we snuck in and got those really quickly. Negotiated the privet. That got purchased by Big River Park Conservancy itself. Lowrance is actually still in progress. I think we've got that one figured out. This guy here, we're gonna have to wait him out. And then Robinson, who owned the majority of the rest of it, is one of our key partners in all of this. Oh yeah, and then there's no privet up there. So it took a bunch of us, because a lot of they came to us and they're like, oh, one person owns it. No, not one person. So we worked with all these landowners, we got them all, except for one, got them all bought into this vision, and we were able to purchase the properties from them. Here is the plan from the park planners. It's Richie Smith, it's out of Memphis. And so there will be, also this land floods every year, so we can't do very, very much. But right now, the whole property is in basically soybean field. It's 1,500 acres. It's a huge, kind of boring farm. We are going to put in a big pond. This exists already. That will be expanding these ponds. The front will be entirely native. I've got more renderings of just things that can be flooded. We're calling this the guitar pit. There's going to be a pavilion there with some restrooms, a couple little parking spots. And then we're gonna, all of the dark green here is existing forest. All of the light green is where we're gonna plant a lot more forest. And it's gonna be bottomland hardwoods. Oh my gosh, thank you. I do not know much about wetlands.
Can I ask another question, please?
Sure, I'll do my best.
Where is that in relationship to Shelby Park?
Oh. How am I gonna show you this? How familiar are you with Memphis?
Fairly familiar. That part of that is along the Cherokee Bluffs.
It's on the other side of the river.
It's on the other side.
Yes. So here, this here is the Mississippi River. This is Interstate 55.
So
And
it's in
that's
Arkansas,
Interstate
it's not in
40.
Tennessee.
It's not, it's in Arkansas.
Okay, all right.
It's in West Memphis, Arkansas. It is but it is more, I mean, it pretty much is. So if you're driving through Memphis to go to Hot Springs or wherever, you know, you're gonna go on I-40, you're gonna cross the bridge, it's everything. Up to the levee that was built back when they were building levees right here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem. Check us out about some other project of ours. That's for sale, if you'd like to buy it. So this is our vision of how we're going to, when we do the restoration work. And Ducks Unlimited, this is what they do. They are wetland experts. So they're going to actually be doing all of the science and all the physical work to do the replantings. And we're going to, really what I'm excited about is be able to ensure that when the land floods, when it goes back into the river, the ecosystems have cleaned the water a tiny bit. I mean, is it going to solve the dead spot in the Gulf? No, but it's going to help a little bit. I can't believe I put that in a pitch piece, whatever. Here's a rendering of the pavilion. It's going to be the only real structure that we build besides some boardwalks. And here is the elevated boardwalks that we're going to put. We're also going to have a lot of interpretive signage so that children and small groups can come through. They can learn about all of the unique species that live there. And right now I mentioned it's just like boring soybean field right now with some trails that people like to go cycling. There is an amazing array of diversity, especially birds reside on this property. And it's not great property. So once we restore it, we're really excited to see what comes back. Yeah, there's another picture of the pavilion with our little solar panels on there and the sunflower fields that exist currently. So we've got a lot of money to raise from this project. We've raised, I would say, about $6.5 million so far, but the boardwalks and a lot of other things are expensive. The good news is that Ducks is really good at grant writing. and they are taking over. So when we're able to take these funds, I think our public fundraising goal is close to 10 million, but the entire project will cost about 27 million. So we're going to be able to leverage those private dollars with public grants for wetland restoration and other things. That's gonna be great. It's gonna be wonderful. We just need to find a couple more $1 million if anyone knows anyone who wants to contribute. So back to sort of more of the TennGreen's projects. Custard Hollow, I really like this property. This is a conservation easement that we did, and it was one of the very first purchased conservation easements. What we were able to do was utilize the Open Space Institute Resilient Landscapes Fund. They fund these in a very specific area, but they're looking at climate resilience lands. And so we were able to kind of match their cash contribution with his donation at a kind of a bargain sale for the easement. 620 acres. And the land itself, because it's still privately owned, privately held, it's in an area in the South Cumberland where it's really adjacent to a lot of conserved land. So it's part of those corridors. There's caves, there's streams, and there's an endangered orchid on the property and a threatened, what does it say? Tennessee cave salamander. So we know that there's really great biodiversity there. And then this was really neat. The U.S. Department of the Interior sent out like a monthly email to their email list, and they featured the Custard Hollow Conservation Easement. So, and I'm sitting there being like, oh, maybe that was like the Tennessee Regional Spotlight or something. It went out to the entire country. Someone in Oregon wrote Mr. McCaleb, the landowner, a thank you note. Isn't that cool? I just think it's so neat. I love it. Okay, we talked a lot about cedars in Lebanon already, and I'm not a biologist, but the soluble limestone rock forms the karst topography of the glades, which includes sinkholes on the surface and low temperature water. I'd be happy to connect with people who actually know the details about why these things are so important. But here are the very recent acquisitions that we just did. So we did the small 5 acres in 2021, and this 15 acres, I think we announced last month. And this is a partnership project, it's acquisition, and we're hoping to do easements that surround the properties as well. This is a Cumberland Trail. If you're a hiker, you probably know all about the Cumberland Trail. We've done a lot on the Cumberland Trail. Our first project that TennGreen accomplished was protecting Black Mountain in 1998. But we continue to work there. So let's see what we've got. Devil's Hollow I talked about. That's that cool cave. Hinch Mountain core connector piece on the trail. We found Hinch Mountain on Zillow. You know, sometimes you just find these properties. The karst forest at Grassy Cove was a major multi-year initiative it ended up being 1,000 acres, $2.2 million. We had to privately fundraise for the Forest Legacy Program from the federal government, which have done quite a bit of that, as well as individuals. Brady Mountain was a land donation to the state that we negotiated. Black Mountain was a purchase and discounted sale. Lone Star up at the top there, 6,000 acres, $6.85 million. We helped the Conservation Fund did the majority of that work. I'm not going to pretend like they did. Lone Star was on everyone's radar for 15 or 20 years, and they finally got the landowners to agree to consider a sale. And they did all the negotiation. We just helped them do some private fundraising because they're not really boots on the ground here in this area. But McGrath is retiring, anyway, lots of stuff. Soap Creek Farms was a land donation, 2,000 acres to TennGreen that we now own and are figuring out what we're going to do with it. Piney River Bluffs was an acquisition that's 400 acres, more core trails. The trail could not exist without, it'd have to go around here. Same with Lone Star. You can see at the very top that brown trail. It eventually will go through the Lone Star property. Right now you have to walk on a road. That's not very hiking great. And then those yellow up, the map is cut off. But at the top where it says Whites Creek, Piney Creek, Possum, Trout Waters, Whites Creek Gorge, those are privately held conservation easements. Whites Creek here it's not the Whites Creek in Nashville, it's the Whites Creek in Ray, Rowan counties, Cumberland County. Prettiest place I've ever been in Tennessee. Prettiest place, hands down. Steve Scarborough, man, he knew what river to buy on. He created Dagger Crag. He was phenomenal. And I kind of mentioned this before, but there's a lot of human history on the Cumberland Trail that is also something worthy of being preserved and understood. What else have I got? Oh, all right. So I'm almost done, I promise. What's next for TennGreen? We've got 35 or more projects in progress right now. I have 3 people in my land department. It is a lot of work. Hello, these little turtles. We are working on a strategic plan. That strategic plan is going to help us figure out what we need to be, where we need to be focused. At the moment, we are well-resourced and we're in a place where we can grow. And I think you saw the maps earlier, we have to grow. We have to, because we've got 2 people in our land department. We're doing way more than we ever did before. And we need to spread our footprint. Conservation happens by people talking to people. We can have a great social media program. Nobody is going to decide to put their farm into a conservation easement with us because they like the meme we shared on Facebook. We have to have one-on-one conversations, but that takes more bodies, more people, more boots on the ground having these conversations. And then, and then that kind of leads right into the strategic outreach that we're doing because we've got our map now. We know where we want to be now. We've got our areas, so it's being there, being present in these communities. Anastasia, we are going to have an event in October. Rain date is November, and it is going to be here in Westmead. You're all invited, and we put an easement on her wildlife rehabilitation property so that she was allowed to open the wildlife rehabilitation. So anyway, Frodo is going to be there. It's going to be fun.
That's awesome.
And okay, one more slide, 2 more slides, one more slide. How you can help, and I totally, there's one huge other one that we were all talking about earlier, but volunteer, TennGreen or other groups. I mean, there's so many ways. There's river cleanups, there are, if you don't even want to be outside, which is not who you are, we do mailings and things. We could use an extra 7 minutes if you want to donate an hour. The Hike-a-thon, that is our fundraiser. I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm very, very proud of this event. It's a little complicated, but ultimately it is an online, virtually managed, peer-to-peer fundraiser. So imagine you are competitions, month-long competition, all kinds of different things, paddlers, climbers, hikers. But it's a really great excuse to just get outside, especially if you want to build a team or if you're like a corporation, you want to get your team outside and do some team building activities. The Hike-a-thon is a great way to do it. We've done it 3 years in a row now, and it raises a good amount of money for us, and it doesn't cost a lot. We used to have a fancy dinner. Fancy dinners cost a lot. This doesn't cost a lot, so the net is awesome for our organization. And then, be an ambassador for the environment. I always say the voiceless need your voice. You're in this room. You guys are already, you're already ambassadors. You're already here committed to this cause, so thank you. And the thing that is not on here that I should have said, vote. Please vote. Please vote well, and please vote smart, because they're at every level, city councils of federal government. That is one of the biggest, most impactful things that any one person can do. Sometimes seems a little sad. So that's TennGreen in a nutshell. I know there was a lot, and I talked fast, I'm sure. But I would love to answer questions. Also, a little stuff up here that I brought. I brought some of our latest newsletters that are literally arrived at 2 o'clock today to our office. So if you're a member of TennGreen, you haven't gotten in the mail yet because we just got them. Some protect your land brochures. So if